Hi everybody, my name's Clint Dubieniecki. I'm a Principal Geologist at Heathgate Resources. As the title said, we're Australia's longest running in-situ ISR operation and at the moment the only currently producing operation in Australia as well. Before I get started, I just wanted to throw a big shout out to Anthony Hewitt, our Chief Geologist, Dave Pedler-Jones, our Senior Analyst, who I was running around in the field for the week, and a few people that I know have had a story about with my kids at the moment being sick, so they did a great job in helping pull these slides together and put something that we could present on the day as a team. And obviously Ben Packer, our Geology Manager, had a good review and input into that as well. I will see how I go with this. Just to be respectful, I think, an acknowledgement of country is the right thing to do. So Heathgate Resources acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we meet on today, the Kaurna people, and we pay our respect to their elders past and present. Heathgate would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands we operate, including the Adnyamathanha people of the Beverley 4 Mile area, and also the Diri people for exploration prospects in South Australia, the Pitta Pitta people, and the Yalina people that we have activities in Queensland with. Heathgate recognises that a positive working relationship with the Aboriginal communities from where we operate is vital to long-term sustainability of our business, and we are committed to long-term trusting and respectful relationships. Interestingly, standing out at the booth, we do get this question quite a lot: who is Heathgate? And as mentioned previously, we are the longest producing in-situ recovery uranium miner in Australia. We're the owner of the Beverley uranium mine, which operated from 2001, and the operator of the 4 Mile uranium mine, which is currently in operation, noting that Quasar, our sister company, is the owner of the 4 Mile uranium mine lease itself. We're a privately owned company and an affiliate of General Atomics, which is a US-based energy company, along with other global affiliates, but we are based here in South Australia and do have the mine as well as other exploration licences through both South Australia and Queensland. We are a relatively small operation with 320 people total for the whole operation itself, and including the Adelaide office and up at site. So, and that number is getting bigger and growing as we go through. The main deposits that you may have heard of are the 4 Mile West deposits, which are our current operational deposits. Our 4 Mile Northeast, East and North, which we've mined previously, but we're looking at restarting in 2023, and the Beverley deposit, which was mined between the periods of 2001 and 2009. But as we get into further, undertaking economic assessments doesn't mean that we've moved away from that. We're continually looking at places that we've been in the past. So, as we are the only operational and the only, or the longest running, we also get the question out there: what is ISR, and how does it vary compared to other mining techniques that we see? So ISR is quite interesting. You do need a permeable medium, which in our case, is a sediment of varying lithological and stratigraphic units. With this, we look to inject an acidic solution down through a series of injectors and then look to permeate that through the permeable medium and start to extract that out of the extractors. So essentially these injectors and extractors are like water bores. If we see a lot of places or a lot of mines are doing dewatering, we're actually using these water bores to inject our solution rather than having to do that liberation of the uranium on the surface through a plant. With this, it gives us a real good short-term adaptability to different factors, both internal and external, which maybe isn't seen within an open cut or an underground mine. It also means that we can mine over large areas. The footprints of traditional roll fronts and over the kilometre spacings with areas in between that are not necessarily mineralised. So we have the ability to be able to mine those areas over large scales without having to dig down through the barren top cover, which we see here, which can be anywhere from 120 to 200 metres, and just access that mineralisation with ease. With that, it does mean that we're constantly undertaking economic assessments, and maybe that's why we really fit in with this feasibility section as opposed to the production section, Because with every single wellfield that we drill, we start to undertake economic assessments and see if that's where we want to be at that point in time. We do life of mine scenarios every 3 months, but we do run forecasts every month to start to assess if we're meeting the production needs for that particular point in time for the year. And we can be dynamic and adaptable with that and look at bringing things on in really quick turnaround times. A good example is one of the well fields that we've got on at the moment, where it went from a small anomaly to being delineated to being turned online within about 12 months. So really giving us that access to mineralisation that we're not sure of at that point in time, but we can bring it online quickly. So for Heathgate and itself, mentioned with regards to Beverley, which was found in the summer of '69 and initially mined in 2001 after Heathgate picked it up in the '90s, and that ran through to 2009. For the older people in the room, myself included, they're probably familiar with the 4 Mile deposits, which were found in the early 2000s and as one of the significant discoveries within Australia at that point in time. And what's really notable there is the 4 Mile deposits were in hiatus for a period of time, and Heathgate at that point in time needed resource as Beverley was winding down to extend the life of mine and utilise the processing facilities that were on site. So effort went into looking at the Beverley and Beverley North mining lease, and Panican and Peppergoona were discovered, which also led to the discovery of 4 Mile Northeast, and that's sort of just indicative that those were discovered and brought into production in really short timeframes and essentially were the company saver, and that's part of that economic and assessments and feasibility studies that are ongoing, but also that dynamic nature of ISR recovery or in-situ recovery mining that allows us to pick up and move to different areas. Similarly, here we can see that 4 Mile East and 4 Mile Northeast had been in production for periods of time in sort of 2014 and 16 and put into hiatus. This was just due to the economics of uranium and the Australian dollar, and we could change our focus to a resource that we saw as being economic at 4 Mile West and be adaptable to the situations that are occurring. So again, probably limited knowledge on what uranium mineralisation is in the sedimentary environment. I know, there's a few companies out there exploring for it, and we probably take it for granted of how world-class the mineralisation that we see at the Beverley 4 Mile deposits are. With any type of mineralisation, we look for a really good source. Here we've got some of the most radioactive, naturally occurring source rocks in the world, with the Mount Painter inlier and also extending a bit further north to the Mount Babbage inlier, which is Mount Painter and Mount Babbage for those. We also need connectivity between, or a transport mechanism, so we're looking for connectivity between a sedimentary source or a sedimentary environment and this base or source rock. So we've got that here. We start to have a look at multiple environment or multiple units, stratigraphic units that we get that with. When we start to look at Beverley being hosted within Miocene, the Air Formation or Eocene sediments hosting 4 Mile East and 4 Mile Northeast in Yajalon, and we start to look at the Cretaceous, a very localised diamictite, hosting the 4 Mile West deposits. And with those sediments, we actually get really idealistic chemical traps, so that trap mechanism that we do need for mineralisation to occur. We see these have reductants, which is the really foundation of getting roll front uranium mineralisation. We're looking for an oxidising fluid that essentially mobilises the uranium from that source rock and then accumulates it on a reductant reducing boundary. So that's sort of, some really good settings that we've got there. And again, probably nowhere else in the world is as good of a setting as what we've got up there, and probably is underappreciated. And then lastly, being ISR amenable, we can have a lot of mineralisation, but with in-situ recovery, we really do require that permeable medium. And with that, we need porosity, we need permeability, and also the ability to be able to concentrate that mineralisation through those fluids, but also the connectivity of that particular sedimentary package for us to be able to inject the solution and then extract that lixiviant, that pregnant lixiviant, and send it back to the plant for processing. So with this, and as mentioned before, we extend beyond our exploration and our near mine delineation, and all the work that we do is undertaken with economic assessments. As mentioned before, the life of mine is undertaken every 3 months. With this, we start to look at the uranium distribution and grade, which is a combination of thickness of grade and the distribution. The reductant chemistry, as essentially we're looking to, or the accumulation of mineralisation is on that oxidised and reduced boundary. What we're looking at doing is creating a small oxidising environment as we're starting to liberate that uranium from the ground and bring it back up to the surface. So we really need to consider what reductants are there and what's the effectiveness on our mining solution. Also, the host rock hydrology or the host sediment hydrology. If we've got higher flows, then we potentially can mine that quicker, a quicker mining process versus a lower flow when we start to see changes in permeabilities within the sediments. Infrastructure and logistics become really important when we're starting to look at these ISR operations with the amount of pipe work and bringing things back to the processing plant. We need to have some time frame if we need to look at extending trunk lines or where we're moving throughout our particular deposit areas. And then this all culminates into the heritage and environment, being respectful of the heritage boundaries and the clearances that we undertake to make sure that we're not impacting those zones or working off those areas, and also the environmental side of things, making sure that we're conscious, and we will look at it later, but the big benefit of this is that there is a very minimal environmental impact in the long term. We do clear some of the areas, but we do see rejuvenation of the vegetation. With these feasibility studies, and as we sort of progress through and are consistently thinking about the economics, we can see variations that occur, namely from the FX rate or the changes in uranium price. And I think, for those uranium explorers in the room at the moment, we've been pretty happy with the price that's been increasing over the last 12 to 18 months. It's been a real positive environment to be within. And additionally, whilst it's not good for the holidays in the US, the falling Australian dollar is good for our job. So just as an example, as we run these economic assessments, and each of these circles represents an extractor being where you're bringing up the pregnant licks, we can see that you can start to assess and see that there is at $30 US a pound, you might have a resource of 250,000 pounds. However, if we start to change those economics and start to look at US $50 a pound, which it's hovering around about at the moment, you might actually have a fair few more extractors that become economic, and subsequently your resource grows or your accessible resource grows. And that's probably some terminology I won't get into too much here, but it does tend to be a point of contention with everybody that starts, is a way that our resource can change based on economics and our accessible resource and reserves that we sort of work through and calculate. As mentioned, economic factors are a huge thing as external, or economic factors are really considered a lot as we start to progress through our mining and even through the delineation and exploration processes that we undertake. One of the big items is the uranium price, and as mentioned, over the last sort of 18 months, or 12 to 18 months, we've seen a really big increase in the uranium price in blue here, and we've seen that Australian dollar changing as well. So we're starting to see a really good net benefit for the company in terms of the actual product that we're bringing out of the ground and its value compared to what it was 18 months ago. In addition to that, when we're doing our economic assessments, there's energy costs such as gas prices. We know that they're going up, so we need to bring that kind of thing in and start to have a look at our short and long-term price estimates with that, and implication that has on our ability to produce, taxes and royalties, and then other geopolitical events that can be occurring. So we are seeing with the Ukraine war that there has been an impact on a positive impact in terms of price, obviously not positive social impact there, but in terms of price of uranium. Internally, we have the real capability of being able to respond to these factors that are coming. The team structure and culture is a really important thing. As mentioned at the start, just an example of the way that we operate as a really close-knit group with 320 people in the group means that we're helping each other out as we go. We are a private company, so we do have a lot of a longer-term mindset and probably aren't as impacted by the share market as what we see other companies are. And this gives us that real ability to rapidly pivot and adopt new strategies as we go, and that is driven by ongoing assessment and a drive for innovation within the company at every step along the way. So just as a overview of the processing plant here, this is the actual processing plant. As an example of our ability to adapt, we've actually used to truck back and forth between the regional satellites, however, installed a trunk line out to 4 Mile West, our current mining deposit, which meant that we could just offset the cost that's associated with driving back and forth, wear and tear, safety side of things. So there's a lot of things that come into play there that we're ongoing considering, and we are looking at putting another trunk line in as we continue our production. Spatially, I will point out one on this slide is just how close we are to the Flinders Ranges, and we do have a really good working relationship with the people and landholders within the Flinders, and it is a great place to work with the deposits occurring in close proximity up along the range front from 4 Mile West, 4 Mile East, Northeast and North. I will push through. I think I've got 2 more slides. So as I said, collaboration at every step of the way. We are 320 people. We've got multiple groups. Got a lot of people here today from the different groups. The Geology and Hydro group work together. We work with Enviro and Heritage, Planning and Tech. We've actually got our own drill rigs at site, looking at 4 at the moment, looking at getting up to 6. So as we work through that life of a well field, we're considering and working as a team all the way through. So some of the main points there being that we work through, look at the localised resource delineation, flow and groundwater modelling, design our well fields, look at the infrastructure sizing and Lixiviant chemistry targets, undertake economic assessments, then look at doing the local environmental and heritage review, and then into operation and rehabilitation. So innovation is part of the culture. What we've actually seen is the ability to reduce capital costs. So we can see some of the designs going from a large scale, what we call a well house in this particular area, which houses all the injectors and extractors. They all come back into the well house and then get pushed into the trunk line, have gone down from a whole house to shipping container to skids. One of the big things for us is the ability to incline drill. I know a lot of people do incline drilling here, but through sediments is not a common technique, and with our own rigs coming on board, we're able to really innovate and start to push the limits of what we could do to minimise both our impact and impact in sensitive areas. As I mentioned before, we do have sister companies throughout the globe that have helped us with the development of an advanced prompt fission neutron tool for downhole geophysics for calculating our resource. And then we're looking at other ways that we can always be innovative to be safer, help with productivity and efficiency. In conclusion, we are the longest operational uranium mine in Australia. The longevity of the operations are driven by consistent economic assessment of feasibility of current and new areas, collaborative and innovative work cultures, long-term thinking, world-class geology, and then we do really have strong ESG credentials as well. With ISR, it is a low-impact operation, and we can see by the image at the top there, there was a well field and well houses in 2011. 10 years later, we've removed all that infrastructure, and it is regenerating back. The area doesn't have that many trees as it is, but you can see that there is positive influence out there. We can progress with rehabilitation as we go, and overall uranium's contributing to a cleaner energy future. So, thank you. Hopefully not too over time.